Big changes are coming to Spain in form of restrictions and taxes in 2025. Are you looking to buy or do you own an Airbnb property in Spain? Today, I'm here with the expert. Watch this video. Welcome back to the channel.
Oh, thanks. So we're live?
We're live. Nice to have you back.
Nice to be here.
So, Peter, what a mess. I think I'll start with that.
Yeah.
What an absolute mess. But before we go into the weeds of what's going on, let me give our viewers some context.
Yeah.
You are one of the founding partners of Franke de la Fuente Abogados. You guys are experts in property law, but also in these matters. So I thought that you are the perfect person to invite on the channel to talk about this, what I call mess. For our audience that are watching, that are looking to maybe already have a rental investment Airbnb property or are going to buy an Airbnb property, the big news all over is from the 3rd of April, there's going to be some massive changes when it comes to the rental regulations, restrictions. It's such a difficult subject to cover in one video because there's so many different angles on it.
Yeah.
But Peter, what would you sort of in bullet form, or what would be the main topics that our viewers need to know about?
All right. So I could decide the topic actually then.
Perfect. Go for it.
Perfect. Now I think let's then point out one big change. So what we do know now, so after the 3rd of April, let's say that you own a property already. Maybe you want to change the holder of that license to a management company, or you own a property and you want to apply for the VFT license. What we know is now that they will require, as part of the application form, Junta de Andalucía, here the region, because that's the ones that make the decisions on the license. They will ask from you a copy of the minutes from the annual meeting of the community of owners, where they positively approve with a 3/5 majority the activity itself, the short-term rentals in the community. And this is a change from how it is right now. So right now, before the 3rd of April, when you hand in your application, the administration, they will have a look in the land registry to see if the communities of owners have prohibited the activity or not. If it's prohibited, your application will not be approved, right? But now, come 3rd of April and moving forward, it's no longer just them to check if it's actually prohibited. You have to prove
it's allowed.
That it's allowed.
That's crazy. So for those viewers that might not be, that might be first contact with market and don't know how it works in Spain, I have a rental property myself. I have an Airbnb investment, right, in La Villa. We'll put the link in comments in case you guys want to rent it out. This property has a VFT license. So, depending where you are in the autonomous region, right, in this case we're Andalusia, the autonomous region has the, let's say, potestad, or the responsibility to emitir the certificados, no? This VFT. So normally you have this VFT, and with this VFT you can then sort of, advertise it on these different portals. And I remember when I was doing my VFT process, right, which was maybe 2 years ago, I believe, it was really straightforward. It's like, this is my property documents, and as you can see, there's no restrictions in the complex because we got the certificado de ingreso cargas, and that could be proven. I think it's a lot easier to prove that there's no restrictions than to prove that they're how would you say it? That they're actually allowed to rent. No, it's a bit so counterintuitive. So what do you think is going to happen with the people that are buying a property now and want to register a VFT license after the 3rd of April, and the AGM has not talked about this topic yet? What's your thoughts?
Well, you could, from a legal point of view, being a lawyer, and I think I'm not alone, of course, in this, I think you would agree with me that any kind of regulation you're hoping for to have more clarity rather than having less clarity. And I think it's unfortunate that we are in a situation where we haven't received enough information to actually understand how this new regulation will be implemented and applied, etc. So we can speculate. But what we know is that because they're asking for a copy of the minutes with an actual approval, well, you can have the scenario where, let's say that you become the owner of a property right now, you know that there is a majority in the community that people don't mind, that
rentals,
people rent rentals in the community. But for different reasons, they will not have their annual meeting until next year in March or in February.
And the owners don't really care about it, right? Like, a lot of the owners, it's not their priority.
Sure. So, but for you it is.
That's why, exactly.
Yeah, you want to rent out this summer. So you can either try to get a majority, majority needed to call an extraordinary meeting,
What a mess.
or you just have to sit and wait politely until the next annual meeting.
But if you already have a VFT, right, and you're not buying a property, but if you have a VFT right now, like it's my case, I can continue renting it. There's no sort of restrictions for people after 3rd of April that already have a license. Is that correct, or is it still a bit messy to understand?
It's always the if, right?
If, yeah,
because
yeah,
you
sure.
have the court ruling saying that if commercial activity is prohibited in the statutes of the community, that also includes rental activity.
Of course.
So if we have a client today, or even after, let's say, more importantly, after 3rd of April, telling us that I want to buy this property, but I will only buy this property if I can 100% you can guarantee me that I can rent it out short term.
What do you say to that guy?
Well, we put a clause in the contract, in the reservation contract to start with, subject to the confirmation of short-term rentals, etc. And then we can do the due diligence only on that point, focus only on that. We have to have a copy of the statutes. We need to have the copy of the latest annual meetings, any other meetings, and we'll have to communicate with the administration to know, are there any other meetings planned maybe for the upcoming 3 month future, and we to get a realistic understanding of the plans for the community, the current state and the plans.
So, okay, now let me give you a different scenario. You have that buyer that's going to buy a property, right? And there's already a VFT in place, right? What then?
Yeah, so then
and sorry, basically for those viewers, what a VFT is, again, it's a rental license that is already existing. So, I've got, let's say, Tim that's going to buy a property from Mark, and Mark has a property with a VFT license, but the VFT license is in the name of Mark. So to add even more confusion, what happens with Tim? How does he get the VFT of Mark and his property?
I think that's an important question right now, of course, because I'm a little bit concerned that some clients are receiving the advice that there is already a VFT license on this property, so you should be fine. You can continue doing the rentals because there's also already a license in place. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be that easy, because if we follow what we know about the documentation required to do a new application or to change the name of the holder of that license, it's still, they need the documents from the annual meeting with the positive approval, 3/5 majority. So if you want to change the name of that VFT to Tim, was it?
Tim, for example, yeah, Tim.
Right? You still need to show the Junta de Andalucía that it's allowed by decision of the community. But if they have voted against it, you will not be successful with that name change application.
So it just seems to me like when I look at this landscape, it's just like someone in Madrid has made changes without understanding what's happening on ground. That's like that's the way I see it. No, why do you think Spain is putting all these restrictions and difficulties in place? What's your opinion on this?
Well, it's a political matter, of course. I mean, there's a housing issue. I think we're all aware of that, and there's one way I think of tackling it. If it's right or not, maybe I shouldn't answer that question. I'm not a politician. I'm not a professor in economy. But I think from a legal point of view, being a lawyer at least, I think that you could hopefully expect regulations to be a little bit more clear, and the market, if you give the market the tools at least to react and prepare for these regulations, then you have done a good work. But something which I think we should mention, we have been discussing the issues and challenges and maybe a few things that are not very clear. But I also mentioned to you that, clients are asking us all the time to specifically understand what kind of rental activity can I do with this particular property, and that information will be available. It will be a little bit more complex, but if the clients have those questions, we can answer them. It's just going to take us a little bit more time to
fully understand
and get the information.
Also, I think there's different kind of buyers that buy sort of investment properties for different reasons. I mean, a lot of our clients buy, apartments that they will rent out in summer and then use the rest of the year. Other people buy just to rent out.
Yeah.
But then you have some people that like to rent in the off season for longer periods of time. So is there any restrictions when it comes to longer periods of rentals which are of a few months or six months at a time?
I mean, I think it's a good thing to point out that there's one thing called the short-term rental industry. Then you have the seasonal rentals, which are rentals of 2 months or more.
Yeah.
You don't need to have a certain approval from the community to do that, or even long-term rentals. It's still, you don't need an approval from the community. It's not limited in any particular way. So it's a good thing to remember. And I think the market will find solutions, and I think also clients will have to find maybe solutions if you desperately want to buy something and be able to rent it out short term, but you can't really. Maybe you have to think a little bit about your budget then, to maybe to adjust your budget slightly and not take that extra income into account.
Fair enough.
And I think we saw now when they abolished the golden visa, which will be abolished any day now. People estimated maybe here on the market that there will be big decrease of buyers from America, from Asia, from those countries that traditionally could apply for the golden visa. We haven't really seen that reaction either. So it's always interesting to see, from a buyer's point of view, taking the golden visa as an example, is this a deal breaker for me, or is it just an extra bonus?
Yeah.
Would it be nice for me to travel freely within the Schengen? Or would I only buy if I can do that?
Yeah,
so will I only buy if I can rent out short term? Or is it just would it be really nice to be able to do it, So I think that we will understand that better in a few months' time. And as I said, you could do other kinds of rentals on your property, not necessarily using the VFT.
For Tim that's watching this video from home right now and he's about to, embark on the journey seeing a property, or he's already seen a property, he's already bought a property. Let's say he's about to buy a property.
Yeah.
What can he do to protect himself from these legislations, these changes in regulations before he makes the jump? What can he do? What's the conclusion
For Tim, what he can do that, of course, he's going to talk to a good real estate broker. He's going to talk to a lawyer that is going to protect him in the initial contracts to make sure that I will only buy this property if these facts have been checked and confirmed. This is quite common that we put in the reservation contract, for example. But I think in general also we talk now on camera, but we have these conversations off camera all the time, because we live in Spain. There are regulations here, local ones and national legislation, etc. And we need to understand them fully. So I think that now we have this new regulation comes into force on the 3rd of April, but it's going to take a little bit more time for us to fully understand how that will be implemented here locally in Andalusia. And I think in video number 2 we will be
great idea,
much clearer.
So my take from all this is it was already complex but doable. Now it's slightly more complex but still doable, right? That's my conclusion of all this. Interesting, cool. Peter, actually I will leave your website in the description, so if you guys want to reach out to Franke de la Fuente, you can do that. Thanks for being on our Expert Talk, and until next time guys, hasta luego.